Hello, I'm Tony and welcome to Southern Sustenance. Today I'm going to take you through how to prep a trailer for use. So this is just a refurb of a trailer that I got handed to me second hand. Obviously if you have one second hand, you've acquired one, whatever the case may be, there's something you can do to extend its life. Keep in mind the better job you do, the longer it will last. I'm no expert, but this is what I used. So we don't have a lot of things available to us in Australia, and when I went through the YouTube videos online, they helped, but with what I had at hand, I didn't cover everything, so I'm just going to step you through how I did it. Firstly, and I'll add pictures to this video, this trailer was all rusty. So the first step in it all is to prep the surface, the second is to acid coat it, third is to prime it, and then the fourth is to paint it. So to prep the surface, there's a few stages in that. What I did is pretty much used a stiff bristle brush or a broom to take off as much of that loose rust that I could from the surface. Then I went around with a wire brush, did the same thing in the harder to reach areas, also used some steel wool underneath and the wire brush again. And then to top it all off, pretty much used a grinder with a special head on it, and this is like some sort of like hard material type thing, and that I just finished it off. Once you do that, pretty much you wash the surface down with some sugar soap. So, you know, again, I just used a little brush to help me with that. Let it dry. After that, I then, because we're going to acid etch the surface, we're going to make sure that it's super clean. And sugar soap, I don't have confidence it'll remove everything, so I used this stuff. It's wax and grease remover. So you just put some on a cloth and you start wiping away. When a cloth gets dirty, you know, flip it over, use more cloths. You do that for the whole trailer. So now the surface is nice and clean, it's ready for acid etching. The time that you take between cleaning and painting or acid etching, you want to minimize it, because, you know, dust and dirt will be attracted quick. So this is not something that can be done quickly. Just painting it took me a few days, and a lot of what I did after work. So yeah, just keep that in mind. To acid etch, I use this stuff, 3M rust dissolver, pretty much the cheapest sort of decent thing I could find, and I only needed maybe one and a bit of these, so I didn't even need that much. So yeah, dab it on a rag, spread it all around, wait till it dries, you know, just follow the directions here, and then yeah, clean it off with a damp cloth, just water. You'll notice that when it does that chemical reaction between the rust and the chemical, the darker grey is where it's like done a complete transformation of the rusted metal, and the lighter greys where it's just sort of just kill that surface rust. So you'll see that. Post that, the surface is now ready for priming. So I just used a little foam roller, just 10 centimeters wide, and this trailer is probably like 7 feet by 5 feet. So it's a decent sized trailer, but yeah, managed to do it all with this. To help things out, I just had some car stands. I managed to just jack the trailer up and place the axle on the car stands, and that they gave me extra room so I can work underneath it. I also had some like portable fluorescent lights just on wouldn't say portable, but on cables that I could just move around underneath, just to make sure that I'm doing it right. So pretty much I used this Rust-Oleum, this rusty metal primer, and this is pretty good. With all these jobs you're doing, you're generating fumes and dust, and you want to make sure you're wearing the right PPE. So especially with this stuff, you know, respirators and, you know, chemical resistant gloves is sort of what's needed here, and also for the acid etching. So pretty much put a coat of that on. In hindsight, probably the more rusty parts, so like the bed of the trailer, I probably should have put another coat on, because primer does two things. It preps the surface for the top coat, but it also stops any of that rust coming through. Even though if it's heavily rusted, you're using a rust converter to do that. Yeah, I would have, in hindsight, I would have just put another coat on the bed there, because a little bit's starting to come through. Once I did that, waited for the next day, and then started to put that top coat on. I did a couple coats of that. So again, same brand, I'm matching the brands up, and it's protective enamel. This is oil based, it will last longer. That's the sort of consideration I went through with this. Pretty much, yeah, it's a pretty good brand found, but yeah, you want to make sure you're wearing that PPE, because yeah, not fun to smell. Once that is all done, you pretty much have your trailer ready. I'll have a cost breakdown in the description, but pretty much there's a couple things that I want to just add into all of that. That's just to get the surface painted. Before I started acid etching, and after I had pretty much grind the surface back to bare metal as best as I could, I used any sort of that hard putty that you need to fill in any gaps, and you know, you could use silicone or whatever you have on hand just to do that, just to stop, once you painted it, any water coming through and causing more corrosion. So you can see I sort of just put it in the corners, especially in the corners and around any of the welds there. Also, when I did it, I took the wheels off. So obviously you do that before you raise it on the jack stands. But I took the wheels off and painted all behind the wheels there and the wheel arches. I also painted the actual rims, and again using like a primer paint, pretty much just used some steel wool to scrub it back, that wax and grease remover, and then painted it. I used some cards just to stop any drift happening. What I also did is, this didn't actually have any mud flaps on it, so I put some of them on and just used some bolts, and you know, made sure it was tight. There are minimum levels for all of this, so you need to check the regulations in your state. But yeah, just even underneath it, I painted all underneath and try to make sure I get as much of any surface as I could painted, really. So that includes the leaf springs there, and you know, the axle. So pretty much, like I was saying, got gifted this under the proviso that, see, it's my responsibility to get it roadworthy and pass inspections and that. Something to note for me, and certain states the trailer was built, at certain times the VIN is pretty much on a plate on it. It's not actually not welded on, or it's just pop riveted on, or screwed on, so I had to get it stamped on, and there's places here that can sort of do that by machine. Also had to add reflectors on there. It was easy, you just stick them on and add it on the little wheel at the front, jockey wheel. What else? I think I fixed a light or two. And yeah, when you paint, you just want to make sure that, and you might have to go over it a few times to make sure you get every little bit and behind every part is painted. Yeah, this was more of a learning process to me. Yes, I'll use the trailer, and I think if you're being able to sustain yourself, trailer's good to have, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of things which involve, like if you're bringing mulch or you name it, the dirtiest sort of things. You don't necessarily want to be putting them in your car or in your into the tray of the ute. So I think that's where trailers are good. You can have things that are sort of, they can hang off the sides a bit more, and yeah, it's easier to load on because it's lower to the ground too. But yeah, just some tips and tricks on how to get it ready, and that's what I did. Near the drawbar here at the front, I also got a steel plate welded on because it was rusting through the bottom. I did that before I even started preparing a surface. Yeah, the thing to note is every time you want to get it repaired, you've got to fill out a form and to drive it when it's unregistered. So if you can knock off as many of those things as you can at once, the cheaper and the easier it is for you to actually get stuck into the real stuff and start getting it ready. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and any questions, chuck them in the comments section, and thanks.